All right, so today we're going to talk about getting the perfectly ripe fig. This is something that a lot of new fig growers struggle with, and folks that have been growing for a long time as well. A perfectly ripe fig is a fig that you're going to want to take off the tree and eat it fresh. If you're going to pick a fig, or you have a huge tree and you pick your figs and you make big jam, whatever, they don't have to be perfectly ripe if you're going to make some big, huge jam. But what we're talking about today is how to get a perfectly ripe fig, especially to eat it fresh. So a lot of times people will pick a fig, they'll show it online, and they'll taste it, they'll say, well, you know, it needed another day. And so what I've developed, I think, is a foolproof test, especially for beginners, for figuring out if their fig is perfectly ripe. We're going to talk about some of the challenges that even an experienced fig grower can have on picking a fig at the right time and avoiding picking it too early. So essentially what this boils down to, taking a needle or a hypodermic, whatever you have on hand, I'm using these for pollination, and poking the neck, that once that neck no longer has any sap flowing from the tree, that the fig can be removed, placed in the refrigerator. If you want it to get a little more concentrated, dehydrate a little bit, concentrate the flavors, it can do it in the refrigerator, not on the tree. So what this test does, I don't know, we can call it the pin test. What this is going to do is a few things this is going to help you do. As a fig approaches ripeness, as you can tell, I have bags on these Angelito figs. The reason you put the bags on are a few different ones. If you pull it tightly, you're going to keep the ants out. You're going to keep the birds away. Birds often get keyed into darker figs as they go for, or red, whatever, they go from green to a different color. The white bags will deter the birds as well. So bigger critters might be deterred a little bit with the bags, but anyway, the closer and closer a fig gets to ripeness, it starts to, the animals and the bugs can smell the sugars or sense them. I'm not sure how they do that, but you're going to start to get different pests getting into your figs. So if an ant gets in there, it can spoil it. If any kind of bug gets on your fig, anytime it's growing, it can put a little hole in it and it can spoil the fig by getting inside. So that's why we use these bags. So the bags go on and allows you to keep the fig on the tree for the minimum amount of time as possible to get a fully ripe fig, and then you can take it off the tree. So we don't want the fig on the tree longer than we have to. And what I would argue is, after there's no sap flowing from the tree to the fig, that it no longer has to be on the tree and in danger of getting eaten by ants, squirrels, raccoons, etc. So let's take a look at this fig. I have ants that are on the outsides of these bags, so otherwise they would be already into these figs. So a lot of people would wait before pulling this fig, and a lot of people would pull it right away. A lot of folks would have pulled it a while ago. So I pulled some figs I thought I pulled early, and they were perfectly ripe. So let's give this a shot and see if it's still getting sap flow. There you go. There's still sap flow. All right. So if you look at this fig, if you pull it off, that's too early. All right, let's try another one. All right, here's another Angelito. And You might want to pull this one now, but who knows? All right, so I'm getting just a little bit of liquid off of this one. What I'm going to do is bag it and then probably pick that tomorrow. I'm not getting sap flow, but there's just a little bit of liquid flowing. So, all right, so just for comparison purposes, here's a definitely not ripe fig, and see what happens when you poke it right away. You get that major sap flow. Immediately it just comes shooting out. Go back up to this one right here. And I'm not getting as much sap flow. I do see a little bit of liquid. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this off just so we can see. All right, so there's a tiny bit of sap, and this is pretty dry. Don't think there's much sap flowing into this. Very little. I could have certainly let this go till tomorrow. The longer you leave a fig, the more chance that something gets in the hole, that this right here starts to ferment or rot. So this is Angelito, major rainstorm today. So I did poke this one, definitely getting some milky flow on the neck. So this opened a little bit with these heavy rains, but I'm gonna bag it back up. All right, so we've seen some figs that look pretty darn ripe, and I'd be tempted to pull those, especially when they start opening. These will be good for another day out here, but you just get so darn tempted to just take them off there. And as we can see, it's they may be sweet enough, they may be sweet, but when you get them perfect, there's nothing like it. The fig is, 4 or 5 times as good, perfectly ripe than almost ripe, or a day or two away from being ripe. So let's take a look at another figs and see what happens. All right, let's try this Ronde Bordeaux. All right, that looks good. Removed it. And there you go. It is completely dry. It's not sending any sap from the tree to the fruit. That's what we want. Okay, here's the 2 Ronde Bordeaux and a Smith that I just took off. I did the pin test and there was no more sap flowing. No more sap flowing, but as you can see, well, this Smith is just not so fantastic. It's pretty weak looking and not red at all, like it should be. And Ronde Bordeaux looks fantastic, but it definitely could have dried more. So if you're gonna do this test, you're gonna poke the neck with the needle or hypodermic, whatever. Even if there's no sap, it still needs a couple days, at least a day. So this would definitely change a little bit and get even redder. So anyway, just that's the experience so far. It's not as done as you might want it to be done, and you can certainly tell the skin is tight, could be definitely drier even in appearance from the outside. But I think what the test is going to do is say, all right, you can pull it off the tree, you can prevent critters and other ants and pests and so on from getting to the tree. we're getting to the figs. But let me just taste it and see how this is right now. This is really good berry flavor, and it would concentrate. Haven't had much rain last few days, so these are not affected by any rain, and they haven't split. Round of Bordeaux is known for splitting. A bit of an open eye, but really early variety. This tree did not get any, got the early shuffle, but nothing super extra, and it's starting to ripen the figs. But this is, let me taste this one over here. Very good flavor. But yeah, I'd stick these in the fridge for a couple of days if I do this again. Okay, so this Del San Juan Gran looks really good. Feels nice and soft. Probably the first good looking fig off of this tree that was started early. But not even sure if it's formed right, because often the first figs that come off a tree, they don't form completely correct, and so you don't get a perfect fig inside or get them ripe. But on this one, it's a big fig, probably 50 grams. I did poke the neck, and so there was still sap flowing. So that tells me that 100% for sure this fig is not completely ripe. And even after that sap flow stops from the neck right there, the fig may need a little more time to dry as well, on the tree or off the tree. So that's how you get a ripe fig. If you're watching the channel, you've seen this BNR was grafted down here below to Nuestra Senora del Carmen. And BNR is a later setting variety for sure, but it put on the figs because I did the graft in December or January, something like that. Anyway, all these figs are ripening right now at the same time. And so let's just take a look just to get an idea. This bottom one is, goes from a green tiger panache looking to the pink stripes, beautiful striations, and it gets pretty black. When it gets more ripe. So now look at this. There is a really nice juicy flow of little fig honey that's coming out, and you can see it right there. So you may look at this and say, well, honey's coming out, this thing is ready to go. But you can see the neck is pretty tight. So it's not going to be close to ripe until the neck lets the fig sag. Now there's some that may just stay that way even when they're ripe. I think crows might have done that. Let's take a look at this. And there's definite sap flow at the neck. So that tells me everything I need to know. So if you get a fig like this, even with the honey dripping, you need to just be patient, hold off, keep it protected from critters. So this fig probably tastes pretty darn good right now as it is, but it's going to taste 10 times better when it's fully ripe. So another way to look at it. Hey, so that's our test today. Needle, safety pin, this is a hypodermic. I got these 18 gauge to use for pollination as well. So you just poke that neck and see. That's going to tell you if the fig there's no more flow. Now, if there's no more flow on the neck and the fig still made it that far, you have it bagged, whatever, you can take it off, you can still put it in the fridge. And if you put it in the fridge, you can cut them open, let them more air dry, or you can just put them in whole. And they can be in there several days. I don't know, you could test it maybe even a week, whatever. What it's going to do is, in that cold environment in your refrigerator, it's going to dry the fig out a little bit. And that's going to concentrate the flavors. 5%, 10%, whatever it is, it's going to be a little bit better. And then when you want to eat them, taste them, do a little taste test, bring them out, let them get back up to room temperature. And then you can have several figs that way. But I think this is a really good test. I think it's going to work. Pretty basic. But I do believe after there's no more sap flow to that fig, you can remove it from the tree. Sometimes this may be really helpful. Other times it just doesn't matter. You're just picking the figs off the tree. So use it for what it's worth. Not going to patent the idea, trademark it, copyright it, whatever. You get the idea. Just have fun and go out there and grow some figs.